The first thing we talked about. Only some of the properties are inherited. Now let me show you this in an example. I've prepared a simple project that you can see. All we have in our body tag are those two p tags. And I created some styles. Actually, it's only one rule for our main HTML element. And we want to check which of those properties were inherited from our main HTML element to our p tags that we can see. The first one is the text transform property with the value of uppercase. And we can see on our example that this property was inherited because our two paragraphs are uppercase in our live preview. Then we got our font weight property, which is set to bold, which also was inherited. Maybe you don't see it, so let's check it if it's actually inherited. Let's change it to normal. Let's save our file. And we can see the difference on our live preview. So let's undo these changes. It's the same thing that we can check with the uppercase value for the text transform property. Let's change it to none, like this. And we can see our text is now normal. So this property is inherited as well. Let's go to another property. We can see the color property with the value of blue. And we can see that our p tags are also blue. So this property was also inherited, but we can see the border property for the HTML element, which is 2 pixels solid red line. And it's the first thing we can see that this wasn't inherited by our p tags. And let me show you why I can already see it. Let's copy this property with these values. And let's create a rule for our p tags. Let's paste this border property with this value. And now when I'll save our file, you will see what would actually happen if this property was inherited. Let me show you this. Voila. Exactly like this. This is the border for our HTML main element. And if this property was inherited, we would get the border for our first p tag, which you can see right here, and for our second p tag, which you can see right here. Because when I comment it, and for example, copy the other properties, but without this border, you can see that nothing actually changed because those three properties are inherited, so it doesn't mean anything. But if we add a border to each of our p tags, this will be the effect. And it's the same situation with the padding property, margin property, or the background color. As I said, you don't have to memorize it all, but at this point, I would like you to keep in mind those 4 properties that are not inherited: border, padding, margin, and background color. In the second example, I wanted to show you how inheritance works or does not work in the case of a precisely defined property for a specific element. We have a second example right here. In the body tag, we have the same situation. We have a p tags, 2 p tags, but the first one has its own class, which is red. I created it only to refer to this element simpler. And we have styles in our style tag, where we assign some properties for our HTML element, the text transform property, font weight, and the color. And we already know that those 3 properties are inherited. But then I precisely assigned a color to our first p tag, and I set to it to be red, and I precisely set the font weight for our second element, and I set it to be normal. Inheritance only works when there's no precise rule for a specific element. I'll comment it right now just to show you better how does it work. Now we can see we have only one rule for our HTML tag, and we have text transform, font weight, and color set to uppercase, bold, and blue. And we can see these properties are inherited by our p tags. They are bold, blue, and in uppercase. But when we set a precise rule, for now only for the first one, let's see, which we declared we want a specific rule for a p tag with the class of red, and we want its color to be red, the color will be red. The inheritance is no longer important, as we can see it with our second p tag, where we want font weight of this element to be normal once again. I assume you already know this selector. It means take a p tag, which is a first younger brother of another p tag. We can see it in our body tag that it refers only to our second p tag. Now for this particular p tag, the second one, we want its font weight to be normal and not inherit its font weight from the HTML file, which is bold. We can see right here. Let's save it. And you can see it exactly as it should work. The precision excludes the inheritance. Inheritance only works if our element does not have a precise rule which assigns properties and values to it. In the third example, I would like to show you how inheritance behaves in the case of the background color property. In this project, we have the same situation in our body tag, where we have two p tags, one with the class of red, and in our styles, we declared a rule for the HTML element with the text transform property with the value of uppercase, font weight bold, color black, and our background color as BBB, which is gray. For our first p tag, we defined the color to be red, and for our second p tag, we defined the font weight to be normal. As we said earlier, those three properties are inherited as long as they are not overwritten by a specific properties assigned directly, precisely to some element. In the case of the first p tag, it would be the color, which won't be black inherited, but red directly assigned to it. In a second example, in the second tag, it would be a font weight, which would be normal, which we can see on our live preview, and not bold inherited from the HTML. But keep in mind that the text transform property, which is uppercase, will be inherited with no problem for these two elements, because we didn't specify it precisely to some element, just as we could do it like this. Text transform none, and we can see now this property is assigned precisely, so the inheritance won't work. But if we don't have it, it will be inherited with no problem, because the precision applies only to these properties that are precisely applied to an element. But let's talk about the background color. We can see that we set our background color for our HTML element to this gray color. We know that this property is not inherited, but you can see this background color under our p tags as well. And it's just because the default value for all the elements for the background color is transparent. So if our HTML element has this gray color, it will be also visible because under all the other elements, which are our p tags in this example, the background color is transparent, so the gray color is visible underneath them. We can check it out in our DevTools. this. Let's select our HTML file like this. Let's go to Computed tab, scroll a little bit down, search for a background color property, which we can see right here. And you can see the RGB function, which is the equivalent of our hex number of BBB, which is this gray color we can see. But let's select, for example, our first p tag. And we can see its background color is the RGBA function with 4 zeros. Those 3 zeros would mean that this color would be black. But since we have a 4th zero, it means that the background color of this element is completely transparent. And we can see it by giving, for example, our first p tag a different background color. Then you will see it. Let's say blue. So this would be a background color precisely for our element. But if we don't define any, as in the example of the second one, the background color will be transparent, so the gray color beneath it will be visible. That's how the background color property behaves. The last thing I wanted to show you in this video. Inheritance works only directly from the parent to the child. Let's see what we got in this project. In our body tag, we have only those 2 p tags. And in our style tag, we only have one rule for our main HTML element with the text transform property with the value of uppercase and the color property with the value of red. And as you can see, our p tags inherited those properties from the main HTML tag. But it's not the entirely true. What I mean by this is that our p tags inherited those properties directly from its parent, which is the body tag. And the body tag inherited them from its parent, which is the HTML tag. And since the body tag hasn't got different values for these properties since they were inherited, the p tags also inherited those properties with these values. But if something would change for the body tag, our p tags won't inherit these properties from the HTML tag, but directly from its parent, which is the body tag. Let's see how this would work. Let's copy these properties from here, paste it here, and let's change text transform to none and the color to blue. Let's save it, and voila. This inheritance from the HTML tag is no longer applied because those p tags inherit those properties from their parent, which is the body tag. And as well, the body tag doesn't inherit these properties from its parent, which is HTML tag, because now it has its own values, which are specified precisely for the body tag. And we can also exclude the inheritance for our p tags by typing some properties precisely for the p tags. For example, color green, like this, and you can see it already on your monitor. So the browser looks for the specific rule for some element. If it finds it, it applies it. If it doesn't, like in this case, it looks for the properties of the parent, like this. Then it gets the properties from its parent. If the parent hasn't got precise properties set, it looks for the properties from another ancestor, which from the parent of this element will inherit these properties. Like in this case, our p tags inherit those properties from its parent, which is the body tag, which has its own rules, and inherited these rules, these properties from its parent, which is the HTML tag. I hope that inheritance is completely understandable to you at this point, and it does not hide any secrets from you. Thanks to this, we can finally move on to an in-depth discussion about cascading and its principles.